Whenever you're ready, Kyle.
All right. All right. The day is August 13th, 2020 at 5 p.m. Everyone in here, Kyle DeSantis, Perry Verino, Zach Salvo, Nick Haywood, Kim Stracina, and Ron Whitehead. Mr. Whitehead, if you'd like to give your branch of service, your rank, and where you served.
Would you like my rank at the time, at the end of my service, or when I was in combat, or what would you like?
I think at the end would be
Okay.
good.
Okay, so it would be I made Sergeant E5, and I was in the Army Infantry.
Zach, you're good to go with sections 1 and 2.
Okay. All righty. Hi, I'm Zach. And
Hey, Zach.
good. How are you, by the way?
I'm doing good, thank you. How about you?
I've been great.
Good.
All right. My first question would be, why did you pick the service branch you joined?
To be honest with you, that's a really funny question. My grandfather was a World War II vet, so I was thinking about joining the Navy, but I never had much experience on a boat. So I went and saw the recruiter, and I grew up in the country in Maryland, so I was used to firearms and things like that. So when I went and visited the Army recruiter, and my MOS was 11 Bravo, which is infantry, that's pretty much what they did. So that's what I was drawn to.
That's cool.
And I didn't really, and I wasn't really, at the time, I wasn't really thinking about like I would now because I'm a teacher and I have students think about, a career after the service. I was just thinking about, I wasn't thinking about being a medic or would this help me do this? I was just thinking about what I wanted to do right then and there, which it ended up helping me. I'm an art teacher now, but I can still put those things that I learned in the infantry into daily life. So
Nice. So where do you teach, by the way?
I'm in Austin High School.
Austin. Yeah, we're all from Brewster. So.
Okay. Hey, I spoke at Brewster not too long ago. Was any of you guys there?
Oh, what year?
It was this year. It was at the library. The history teachers were going to do like a living history veterans project with the art teacher.
I remember, Nikki, didn't Mr. Gallagher talk about that?
Yeah.
Mr. Gallagher talked about that. I don't think I was there for that, though.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. My second question would be, do you recall your first days in service at all? What were they like?
Absolutely. Basic training. Like I think about that pretty much every day. What the difference say, because my name kind of sticks out, Whitehead. So it's kind of easy for people to remember my name. So, and that's not a thing really my grandfather, before I left, he was a World War II vet. He said, if you leave basic training and they don't remember your name, you did a good job. But so the first day they kind of knew my name because it was kind of easy and it stuck out. So, they put you in these big cattle trucks and they, bring you in and there's like 100 of you on this cattle truck. And when they open the door, you have like 5 bags and you can't carry them, but they're telling you to. And then they put these drill sergeants in a line. I walk by this big, humongous guy, and he's like, Whitehead, your butt's mine over here. So, my name sticks out. So it kind of, you were trying to hang low during basic training, but it didn't happen.
That's cool. Okay, next one. Speaking of the guy who said, Whitehead, your butt's mine, do you remember anything particular about that instructor that stuck with you since now?
Yeah, really weird that after I got out of basic, like a person. Like when you're in basic training, like the people like way up the rank, and then the day you graduate, your parents come and see you. They're like shaking your hand, and you're like, "What? This person's like actually a person? Like they're like animals." Like you think a funny story would be sort of you have 2 drill sergeants. And you go on this long run, you're tired, you come back and you're relaxing, stretching and everything, and then you go up and shower, and 2 days later, a drill sergeant's completely dressed in perfect uniform, yelling and screaming that you're taking too long to shower, but you don't finally know that while you were stretching, that drill sergeant left and went and showered while the other one's yelling at you, so you kind of like are tunnel vision in basic training. Like I didn't figure that out. Nobody figured it out until like the end of basic training. Like, how's this guy shaved, showered, looking so great? And I just jumped in the shower and he's screaming at me. You know, I had to get out with soap on me. You know, like, you're taking too long. He wasn't there. I never realized that. You're like so scared all the time.
That's funny. Like, it's kind of like me when I take my showers here. I get yelled at all the time.
Yeah, it's just, you know, and it's just like meals, eat it now, taste it later, you know, like everything's a rush. And the biggest thing about basic, you don't realize that, you know, snacking and stuff, you only get 3 meals a day. Like, there is no, you know, if you get hungry, I'm going to go get a pretzel or something like I just did, you know, like when you work out, so you eat. I never ate eggs before in my life. But when I got to basic training, I ate eggs because you eat whatever they give you, really. So.
All right. All right. My next question is let's see. Tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences.
Just one would be in basic training. At the very end, you know, you go through basic training, and then I stayed there for the main. Then you go to like a ATS. It's, you know, like I forget what the acronym exactly for, but you go to your specific training. So if you're a fireman or, you know, something like that, you go to like. So I stayed at basic training 8 weeks, and then stayed with the same people for ATS. And right at the end, they put you all in the order and they go down alphabetically. And my name was last, and they tell you where you're going to be stationed. And they said, Whitehead, Germany. And the first thought was my mom's going to. That was like my first thought. That was like a funny memory I always have. And then I just have, you know, really fond memories of, you know, like all my. And, you know, I'm a teacher, and we're always talking about equity, and we're always talking about, you know, race, everything that goes on. And it kind of bothers me as a veteran because as a vet, I mean, see it because I'm an educator and I've been taught a lot of those things, but I had to find myself to keep quiet during meetings because as a veteran, you don't really look at people that way. You know, like you don't even think about stuff like because people don't understand. Like when I was in Iraq, I was a Bradley fighting vehicle driver. Since I was in Germany, we were mechanized infantry. I basic as an infantryman. And when I got stationed, I got in the armor unit. So we can't keep up with M1 tanks on our feet. So they put us in Bradley fighting vehicles. And I remember being in Iraq and I drove over a mine. It didn't hurt our track at all. I mean, but it was loud. It scared you. I remember as a driver in my back, I have a hatch. I'm the one that controls the hatch and lets the dismount out. I remember driving 40 miles an hour in this big, heavy Bradley, you know, fighting vehicle. Thing goes off. And I go on the back and then I see nobody's hurt and I just keep going. Like I didn't even think about opening the hatch. I didn't think about getting out. I just did what I was trained to do. If we hit something, let everybody out. So that's, you know, it's a memory that, you know, and that goes on with a lot of things that we did. I think one of the biggest things that I really like about the leadership, I like really the good leadership to me is like if I go to something and I see some higher up has an AC, that would never happen in the Army. Like if the troops didn't have AC, the leader wouldn't have AC. Another one would be if one time we had meals when we were in Iraq. We only had 6 meals and there were 7 of us. The highest ranking person didn't eat it all. Like, and we asked, please let us share with you, and he wouldn't take it. So good leadership is like doing what you say you're going to do, and you know, leading from. So I always remember that sergeant, certain sergeant with like he wouldn't even eat, and I asked him to like, please take my bread or whatever I had. And he wouldn't take it. He's like, you're a major. I love you, and I want you to eat. So things like that, And then when you go up the ranks, you remember and you do the same thing. So you don't find that a lot, unfortunately. I mean, we find a lot of good things, but we don't find that kind of leadership anymore. Not much in the workplace.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Oh, and one more. I got this. I have my best friend is my gunner. Like. He's a police officer. He was a Honolulu police officer when he got out. Now he's in Washington State, and we always talk. We're very close. We're stationed in Germany together. And I just remember, like, when the war was over, we went back down into Saudi Arabia, and we got to shoot off all the ammunition because they didn't want us to take it back, the stuff we had left over. And we had, we had tow missile launchers. It's called a tow missile launcher. Grunts can carry it and put it on a stand or in a Humvee, but the Bradley has 2 tubes in it on the turret. So we had 2 leftovers. So the gunner shot it before, so we were going to let some of the dismounts shoot them. So John and I got in the back, and they shot off a tow, and then we were going to unload it. And since we're the crew, we never had to load it. So we unload it. This is a live tube. It's like, like 80 pounds. It's a serious rocket. It goes through a tank. And we pull off the caps in the back. We did it in practice, but not a real one. Pulled it out, and it fell off the back. Remember my son, whenever I call him, I always have to remind him. I mean, he crapped his pants. I've never seen somebody scared. I remember that and stuff like that. But when I saw John's face, he was just like, goo, goo. And he's like, there's a wire, don't move. I'm like, holy crap. What do we do? And we called somebody over who's really experienced. He's like, oh, it's supposed to be that way. Well, but it was the moment I saw his face, I've never seen anybody that scared in my life. I mean, it's a big, heavy rocket. We're in this like little space in the back where Bradley pops over the wire, and he's like, "Whoa!" So, and it's all about perspective when you're in the service, because I was young and I was dumb. And I was like 19. I mean, but I think about how brave the people are. Like my Sergeant Smith, who was my commander, he had 3 kids. I mean, talk about heroes. Like the people. Like I'm a father now. I imagine being in the Army like I was when I was younger.
Wow.
It's just incredible, like for me to really think about, and I don't think people think, people don't think veterans are normal people just doing, crazy things and put in crazy situations. So, whenever I talk to people about veterans, I just want them to remember that veterans are real people, and every day. And when I like look on TV or something like, that's a father, a son, a mother, a daughter. It's real people. So those are things. I look back at Sergeant Smith, and I call him a couple of times a year too. I just remember, wow, man, I can't believe he had 3 kids. I remember going out in Germany and hitting him with snowball stuff. The next thing you know, we're in Iraq, and I'm like, wow. So younger, I was more worried about him than even as a young person, you get to realize that like if somebody's got to go, it'd be better me than him, because he's plus the age difference. He was like 27. He was old. When you're young, you guys know it, man. Like, we had people that were 25 that were like ancient. And I was like 18. You would think like the time when you're your age, man, especially in the military, we think about it, man. 18-year-old, 25-year-old, that's like a 50-year station. People are old. Because it's a very small window,
Yeah. All right.
Hey, if I talk too much,
Yeah.
I haven't taught, in a while, so I'm used to like talking to.
That's totally fine. I enjoyed hearing that story. It was good. While you were stationed in
Yeah,
Germany,
but you just think about, man, wow.
sorry. While you were stationed in Germany and Iraq, did you see any combat at all, or as an infantryman, were you like around part of it?
Hey, guys.
Is that just his, or is everybody
That's just
frozen?
his.
That's on mine too.
All right, we'll wait.
Okay.
Hey, Zach, I'm sorry. It froze a bit on me. Do you mind going over the last?
You've been freezing a little bit as you're talking, so we're missing a few words here and there, but
Okay.
we got the gist of everything.
Right. Sorry. So what were you saying? I'm sorry.
When you were stationed in Germany and Iraq, were you around combat at all, or were you mostly working like behind the scenes?
No, I was, I was with the 1st Armored Division, Iraq, so we were way up front. And later on, if you ever want me to email you pictures or something, there's nothing out there. Like, I could show you pictures of where we were at. And it was pretty crazy because they were pretty smart when we were in Iraq, the way they planned it. They did it right. So, and just a shout out to all the Vietnam veterans. They were all my leaders. So they wanted to make sure they got this right. So when I was with the 1st Armored Division. So we were like heavy armor. Like we had M1s like out the wazoo. So I was with the task force. So the infantry battalion. So they broke us into companies. And a company has 4 Bradleys. So there's 4, 8, there's 12 Bradleys per company. So they took half of our Bradleys and put them with a tank, and it gave us half the tank. So when we went into combat, we were half tank and half infantry. So they were really smart. They didn't separate us; they actually put us together. So a really smart thing to do. But a town, if you look up, search or Google a map of Desert Storm, you'll see a triangle. The triangle is red, yellow, and blue, and it has a 1 on it. It shows the arrows, like where we went. We were right in the middle. Like, they had like the Marines down in Kuwait. They had some of the infantry divisions and stuff on the left, and we were right in the middle. So when we went through a town called Al-Basaya and kept going down through Kuwait. So, yeah, we were like all the way up front.
Yeah, I just I Googled Desert Storm as you were speaking, and I'm looking at some of the images right here. That's
Yeah, like, and one, if you say Desert Storm map or unit map, it'll show you all the units, and I was in 7 Corps, and it'll be on that map, and it goes up and around. You'll see 1st Armored Division.
Let me take a look at that. Unit, can't spell, unit map. Oh, wow. So you said you were
It shows you the arrows and everything
yeah, you guys were going
in
into
the middle.
yeah. Wow, that's you guys.
And then we started in Saudi, went through Iraq, and then went down through Kuwait.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing here. You started in Saudi Arabia, went through Iraq, and then ended up in Kuwait. Wow, that's fascinating. That's
so we were the ones we ended up dealing with the Republican Guard a lot. Like that was a big talk about Iraqi elite forces. That's who we went against.
That's cool. Let's pull back up.
And it's pretty scary to think like those countries have been in war for a long time. Because in Saudi Arabia, when we got to the Iraq border, you could tell it was a country that's been at war for a long time, because they had these big, huge berms. I mean, the engineers had to go up before us. I mean, these berms were like all of 3 stories, and the engineers had to come, and we had to come. They had to put out ramps for us, and we just kept over these because they made them for tanks, so steep so a tank couldn't come down. I mean, it was the whole border. Like, it's not like walking down from Canada or something. It was a big, huge border.
That's good.
And that's when it kind of got real, because I was a driver, and we pushed. You can look up records and stuff. Like, we were breaking records like from World War II, like meaning that like the long distances we traveled in an armored unit. I was a driver, and I drove everywhere. And I tell my wife, my superpower is sleep. I can sleep anywhere, anytime, and it drives her nuts because she knows I can. Like, we could be in an argument. If I'm tired, I'd just go to sleep. Because as a driver, you need to. Like, I would at nighttime, and you can't see anything at night through this little visor. It's green, the night sight, but you have no depth perception. I could see other lights. Like, we all tanks and trucks have lights. We broke all the ones in the front so the enemy couldn't see them. We kept the ones in the back, but we spray painted them. And one of the best, we have good equipment. So when you turn on the light, you can't see the light, but you can feel the heat light would be. So that's what all our sensors take up on. So even during the day, when I became a gunner, it's really interesting. Most Army people and Marine people fight with night sights even during the day, because we're taught to read heat signatures. So if I saw you in the heat and you were in a vehicle, we used to have playing cards. They used to give us tests, like cards. Everybody had a deck of cards, and they'd pull it out anytime, like in the meal line. And if you didn't know what it was, you had to go to the back of the meal line. But you would identify like what kind of friendly or foe, and they'd ask you how you know, and you could tell like where the heat signal came from. Like if I saw an M1, like one of our tanks, I know exactly what an M1 looks like when it's hot in night. Then I know exactly what a Russian T-52 looks like, just because of like the heat signature. Because we can shoot a lot further than we can see. Like we have really good range. I mean, it wasn't like, Vietnam was really hard, because it was, very short distance. Iraq was really a perfect atmosphere for what we had. Like it was, if you look at pictures, it's wide open. So we had the best equipment. But the bad thing is you had to be careful with friendly fire because we could shoot really far, like miles.
Okay. All right. My final question for my two segments would be, were you awarded any medals or citations from your service?
Yes. I earned my CIB, which is a combat infantryman's badge. It's probably what I take the most pride in because you have to be a grunt or infantry to earn that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, a blue rifle with a wreath around it. Means you're fought with, if you were in combat as a combat arms person. I got a driver track, master driver track award, meaning that, as a driver, I drove safely, which is kind of important. Earned a couple Army accommodation medals. But I think the most pride I have is just, to wear a first armor patch on my right sleeve. If you ever see something on the right sleeve, that means they went to combat with. Left sleeve is who they're with now. So I'm pretty proud of the First Armor Division too. We used to make fun of the tankers all the time. Like as grunts, like in the military, it's just like, football teams or high school kids doing the same thing. Like we always make kind of like, we have acronyms for everybody. They're not really appropriate. But we always make fun of, like DATs for tanks. You could probably figure that out. But we always make fun of tankers. But we were really happy to have them in Iraq. Like we had tanks shooting at us, and like we were really happy because we're light armor vehicles. So it was really nice to have the big boys with us. But we didn't let them know that. Yeah, we still talk trash.
All right. That was fun. That was great. That was awesome. Thank you for sharing all that with me.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, and it's, what? It's taken me a long time. Like Iraq does to him is almost 30 years now. Like almost 30 years ago. It's taken me a long time to be able to talk about it. Like, like that. Like even as a teacher, like I look back, I've been teaching 20 years, 22 years, and I think back, it's taken a long time, to be able to talk, but it's good. It's a good thing, like, I want to be able to, there's so many great, there's a lot of bad things, but you can't, live your life like that, so that's why I try to tell other veterans, because that's a lot of, fall into negatively VA, which is not perfect, the VA hospital. So you heard horror stories, but, you got to make sure that you try to keep it positive so people will go to, like, veterans who have problems. VA is veterans don't go to the VA. That's huge. Like, because, a lot, when I came, I didn't want to go at all. And then, you get somebody, it's what you should go, and until then you go and then you're happy you went. And if you can't talk to them, tell them to talk to another veteran because it's always good to have an advocate. It's always good. So, the hospital, am I boring you? Is this good stuff or?
No, you're not. No, you're not boring us.
No. So if you go to the VA, it's really hard to somebody because if you're going to talk to somebody, it's probably a therapist. Probably haven't been in the military. So you're kind of like looking at them. You're going to share something really personal. And first of all, you guys sports or you guys are in the going for Eagles?
One's an Eagle, one's going for his, and I'm a friend of both of theirs.
Good, but if a friend asks you, you probably say, if how you feel on a 1 to 10, you probably, even if you're feeling a 1, probably done like 5, 6,
Yeah.
So when you go, hey, veterans are very macho, and you go there, and you could be having a word. The veteran, they actually feel you're probably going to lie to them and say it's an 8 when it's actually a 1, because this is what you're trained to do. Like used to sucking it up. Like people that go to sick call in the military are called, wimp, cold. You suck it up. That's the way you're used to. And if you're in the military and you get flagged, that means you can't go. A friend who was in Alaska did Afghanistan. unit came back and they were going to go again. He was having a lot of problems. He didn't tell anybody his problems. He did. He wouldn't go back with. And the worst thing that could ever happen to somebody is like you're not there. You know, if your friend's there, you know, or you have a sibling, a mother, they have an accident, and you devastated. So a lot of veterans lie about how they feel because they want to be able to continue. So good, you know. So hopefully we can get over the help they need.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Hey, one thing, do you mind? Is that okay? Do you guys have the time for one more thing?
We have the time, as much time as you have.
Another good analogy somebody said told, if you're in a car, you drove to work and you got a really bad accident, and then you decided not to drive anymore, people would probably understand why you wouldn't be able to drive anymore. You know, hey, they get an accident, they don't want to go to work. But if you go to the workplace and your workplace, you're having trouble because you're a combat vet, that scenario is very different, and it shouldn't be. Like, wow, this person's nuts. They're having problems. They're going to think, you know, they're going to think very differently of you. And it's unfair. So that's why veterans lie about it, because that's what happens. That's life. You know, so you're trying to get a job, you know, you're all dressed up and you're like, yeah, combat. You start talking about, you know, how about the veteran, if, you know, the veteran is honest, you know, and if they're having problems and they say hi, you know, that's, you know, that's another thing that goes on. It's sad, but it's the way that happens.
All right, Nikki, you're good to start with 3 and 4.
I can't hear you, but
Nikki, you're on mute still. Nikki, you're on mute.
Thanks, Zach.
I do that. I do.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just had to run and grab a computer charger real quick.
No problem.
So now you mentioned earlier that you never ate eggs until you joined the military.
Yes.
What was the other food like there?
In the military,
Yeah, when you were serving.
it's called, I love chickpea gravy on toast, what they call crap on a shingle. I love that. I still love it today. But really, you know, thinking about eating in the military, not really about taste. It's about yourself nutrition. That's all. You know, when in Iraq, we ate MREs, those meals ready to eat. Like, it wasn't for taste. I mean, you bought Tabasco sauce or Frank's hot sauce or whatever. You made it the best you could, and you make all these crazy things, but you're calories. So, I mean, I didn't really mind because I was and I knew what it was for, like the stuff in my whenever I could eat. I mean, they put it this way: I had the same spoon the whole I was in the military. One thing kept the same. A soldier's always ready to eat. Always. You only get to eat times a day, so you know you stuff your face. When it's time to eat, you eat. It's like it's time to sleep. Like right now, if I told me I had to go to sleep, I'd lay down and go to sleep. Like, you know, you just have to do what you do.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do, and there's always time to eat.
Yep.
And you mentioned that you had earlier that you had a relationship with Sergeant Smith when you guys you would hang out throughout. How did you guys entertain yourselves throughout when you guys weren't when you weren't actively doing something, when you had free time or even on the job?
Yeah, that's an easy one. We played spades. Card players, like most people in the military, have big spades. Like, and spades are usually as you play a game. So me, Felipe Coronado, he was a young guy like me. We teamed up and we made, when we're in Iraq, like we're the only, like you get a partner, you stay with them. So like the older guys, the younger guys. So it's mainly spades. And if we got right in the middle and something happened and we had to get back and move out, we just put our cards in our pocket and we'd nothing happened, like, you know, 20 or like, so we were ready to go because it was a big talk. If you ever played spades, it's in games. And military, like, military people like being like the alpha or something. Like, we spades a lot. A lot of people like read some comic books or something like that. I had friends like Marvel in DC, and so it's really cool. Like, reading or whatever you want to do. But mainly cards. I think everybody played cards.
Okay. And now on top of that, did you guys pull any pranks when you had free time? Any practical jokes on anyone?
All the time, especially like with young guys, like brand new people, like a brand new person in. Like, we'd be in Iraq and we'd even get new people in. Like, we have the big track, like, we have some new on top of it, and we had them get on top. I had to test the sprint, jumping up and down on it, but we had some I jumping up down on it like he's nothing. Or you play, it's a lot of with like lieutenant and like in a lot of pranks on the lieutenants and stuff like that, and make fun of stuff like that. But that's where sarcasm goes, a big thing in the military. So like almost being nice to them. Like when somebody here, like, what do you do? What are you being nice to me for? Like, that's like almost like a bad thing. Like, it's about, and I mean, the great thing is a lot of these things aren't spoken either. Like, like you might see somebody write my will or do something like that, just know each other, if somebody needs something, you don't. Everybody knows when there's a time to be serious and the time to be, and most of the time we're like mean to each other because it's really competitive. So, but a good spirited, if somebody was nice, you wonder why. 2 tours in Vietnam, he was a super pilot, and our captain never seen combat in his life. The 2 higher ranking people, the captain around and said the first sergeant like has tours in Vietnam 2 years. So he was the grumpiest. We got to Iraq, he'd be nice, and that really scared him. We had to tell him that. Like, we had to tell him, please go back to your old self. Because when we got to Iraq, he was like, part of his job is supply, ensure everybody's taken care of. If somebody needs smoke, he gets all the supplies and does all the organization. And he's coming around and, hey, yeah, man, I'll help you out with anything. I'm like, dude, this guy called me a piece of crap. I was like, please go back to being mean. Seriously, like, it's really weird when it's like getting nice. It's like almost getting dinner. Like, if you get a steak dinner in the middle, somebody asks something about food, if you get steak, you're going to get the shaft. Like, you nice meals unless something's happening. You get a nice meal, that just tells you right there the command's like has something for you.
So good means bad.
Yes, in a lot of ways.
That's going to be good to know for the future. So now, did you stay in touch with your family when you were out serving?
I was in Germany, yes, and we Iraq. Like, we didn't have cell phones and stuff, so I was there for 8 months. And I got to call home times. Big tent set up, and they would get you a bunch of you who wants to make a call, and that's another story. Like, I probably could have called 5 times, but I called 3 because all the single guys got together and were like, look, we got to man up and let the married guys call. We gave up, say about 5 times I could have. I called them like probably 3 times. Like 5 minutes each to call. But it's a thing to realize that, even as, a young person like 19, I realize, these people like to be talking to his kids, Have you ever read a story called The Good? You should read a book. There's a book called The Good Soldiers. So I don't know if it's about, I think it's Iraq. I read it a long time. It's a really good leadership book on how good leaders like in the military, where he was a captain. His wife had a baby, and so they let him leave 2 weeks to come home to the United States to see his baby. He spent a week with his wife and his newborn. Spent a week at a VA hospital where all his members got wounded. So he gave up a whole week of being with his other family. So stuff like that's pretty important to veterans.
All right. So now that we've gotten through a lot of your time in service, do you remember what you did exactly when you left? Like your last days of service?
Ooh. Oh, my as a service. So I was in Germany first station. I did 4 years. So I did 2 years, Iraq, then. And my last 2 years was at Polk, Louisiana. That is an armpit of the world. Let me tell you, man, if you're a grunt, Louisiana, it is no fun, man. It's like the worst because it's hot. It's bad. So I just remember getting ready to leave, and I went out to the sign, and I took this big photo. I had one of my friends Fort Polk, and I was like, yes, I'm leaving. And then I get home. I don't know why I did it, but I joined the Maryland National Guard, I guess, for college. 4 weeks later, we did our summer training, and guess where I went? Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Did you say it was for 2 years or 2 months?
Like in the National Guard?
No, when you moved from Germany to there, how long were you in Louisiana?
I was in 2 years in Polk.
2 years, okay.
And then 2 months after getting out, I went in the National Guard. And then 2 months later, I was back at Fort Polk. I couldn't believe it. But, hey, it was a good situation. High school wrestler, and my high school wrestling coach was a colonel in my National Guard unit. So I ended up being his Humvee driver, which is good. Well, it was good duty because he picked me because he knew me. And 2, I knew the base. Well, he went down there, and as a leader, I had to go to training, and then he needed to be driven around. So I knew the base. So it could have been worse, but I had to go back to Fort Polk.
So you got off pretty lucky.
Yeah.
So you were in the National Guard after you were in the Army, correct?
Yep. Yes.
Did you stay there? Did you stay in the National Guard and did you mention whether or not you went to college?
Yes. Yeah. I stayed in the National Guard while I was in college. Yeah.
Now, did you have the military support your education, or did you pay for that yourself?
Yeah. Days when I got the GI Bill, I paid $1,500. Which isn't a lot, but it my paycheck. I had to pay, for the first 15 months, I had to give back $100 out of my check, and then I ended up getting $36,000. So, it's different now. I think now it's a lot better, and I think if you join the National Guard, most National Guard pay tuition. But when I was in, the Maryland National Guard didn't, so I had $36,000. Which I used to live off of. I didn't even use it for, I did it so I could go to college. You know what I mean? I bought all my own books, paid for my own classes and everything.
Now you're an art teacher at Ossining.
It's the craziest thing. If you would go back to my high school and talk to my teachers and tell them I'm an educator, they would faint. I was mainly an athlete in high school and a jock. I wasn't very good. I never took the SATs. Never thought. Nobody in my family. My mom and dad didn't graduate high school. So I just knew, just one of the reasons why all my friends are going to college and stuff, I didn't want to be the one hanging out, not doing anything. So I was like, you know what? I'm all to join the Army. So that was another reason why I joined the service. So college was much easier for me. I recommend college. And my wife's a very good student, and she'll tell you that's where I met her in college, that I soaked up college much more than she did. I love college. Put it this way, 3/4 there were female. I'm serious. I was in 8 every day, listening to somebody, people yelling at me. I'm with a bunch of beautiful girls. I met my wife there. Food's better. College is please. So it gives you a little bit of insight. I got a hilarious, as an art teacher, had to take art history. I was in Baroque and medieval art class with a nun teaching a class. First slide brings up is the Bamberg Rider. The Bamberg Rider is a really famous sculpture. You look it up. It's in Bamberg, Germany. And that's where I was stationed, Bamberg. I walked that sculpture every weekend and never paid attention to it. It's just one of those things you look back on. I raised my hand. I'm like, I saw that thing like almost every day. But you know, when you're young, you're going out, you're going. So one day I'd like to go back and actually look at the Bamberg Rider. I was like sitting in this medieval class, like, and this nun pulls up a slide, the Bamberg Rider. I'm like, no way. I was stationed there. Never paid attention to it.
I just pulled up a picture of it, and
Yeah, it's crazy. I was like, I know that thing. I walk by it all the time.
so I think I've. Oh wait, that's a different set. That's a different section. I am done with my two parts of the section. You got a lot answered from my stuff and Zach's, so I'm passing it off to Kyle.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much for these stories. They're really great.
Anytime.
All right, I'm going to ask the final few questions to kind of round everything up.
Sounds great.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Yeah, absolutely. It just made it more real. Like, I grew up in Maryland in the country and grew up with guns and stuff my whole life. You know, used to shoot little army men with my pellet gun. I mean, it was like the Wild West. I walked around with a gun my whole life as a kid. And it's definitely changed everything I think about it. Just making it's real. It's, you know, it's not a video game. There's real people at stake. And there's real lives, and you know everything gets meshed in. So yeah, definitely.
And I know you briefly touched on it with an experience when you're a teacher now. Is how did your service and experiences affect your life?
It's a teacher.
Just in general, I know you mentioned how you were like people were talking and you were staying back.
So I would say the biggest thing is, I think it's one of the biggest strengths is that, you know, like people would think that I'd be this art teacher in the military being like, you know, in your face. I'm more in the, like, you know, the military teaches you personal responsibility. So you guys know you're all in high school, you boys are in high school. Like as a teacher, I'm a teacher, and like cell phones, I'm sure you have some teachers that go crazy over cell phones. Like I'm not that person. Like I'm not the phone police. I'm the police where I treat you as an individual. If you can get your work done and see you on the phone, then you can become our teacher. Like kids like to listen to music. So I think that's, you know, you learn by example. Like I tell the kids, if my wife calls, she doesn't call me very much. It must be an exam for a reason. I'd say, excuse me. I'd walk out of my classroom and I'd take the call. That's what I expect kids to do too, you know? And I've never had a problem. I've been at the high school for a long time. Never had a problem with cell phones and teachers tell me because I just don't go, you know, but just be respectful. You know, it's that, like, if you're listening to music, I see you on your phone and you're not getting your work done, I just come over. You're not getting your work done and you're on your phone, you know, it's pretty common sense. So, you know, I just take that approach. And kids like that, like, I have phone calls all the time, you know, but I'm very, same thing. Even with the Pledge of Allegiance, I've never demanded kids stand up. I do. I lead by example because I have a lot of kids that don't. But I do have kids that when they see and will stop talking because they know it means something to me. So it's just, you know, about, you know, showing respect and what me, you know, because, you know, through social media and stuff, it's hard for people to kind of go past that barrier or what other people that. So in the military, you know, you live with all kinds of people from all kinds of faiths and everything else. You learn to respect people, you know, like you don't try to go over and be a jerk about it, you know. So I think this gave me some common sense skills that a lot, you know, it's not so common. Like people, I can't believe my fellow colleagues go not over the cell phone stuff. I'm like, it doesn't have to be a problem unless you make it a problem.
Final
And plus,
question.
and plus, one last thing, the kids know they're not going to get to me. I don't know if you guys, I know when I was in school, I knew a teacher. Kids know they're not going to get to me. You know why? And I tell them, first thing I tell them, look, I was in Iraq, and this is a really good job. I love my job. So when you walk out of here, I'm going to go home and kiss my wife and kids, and I'm going to be happy. So you can be miserable. You can be whatever you can be. Or you can drive, you know, train and be a happy train. Like, I'm serious. Like, and like, I've had kids, you know, argue with me. I'm like, okay, fine, go ahead. You can argue all you want. Doesn't matter. because I've, dealt with people much better than you, much stronger, you know what I mean? Like, this is an attitude. And even when I had back to school night with parents, I tell them the same thing. I'm a happy teacher. Like, I'm a happy person. Like, I realize how good I have it. So, you can be miserable all you want. I'm not going to put you down. And that shows I look out to help kids all the time, but I'm not going to be unhappy about it and get some argument that's not necessary, because I know we're in a good place. So I'm an art teacher. I mean, come on, it could be a lot worse than that.
Final question I have is there anything that you would like to add that we have not covered so far in this interview?
I say the same thing to everybody. You should always use your gifts to help others. Like, as a veteran, I'm an artist, so I take my students to the VA hospital 3 times a year. And we go, Brewster's getting ready to do it as well. We would have done it this year at Brewster, but it's called the Living History Project. And it's where I take 20 kids to the VA hospital, artists, and we interview veterans. I break the kids up with veterans. We interview them just like you're doing now, a conversation, and then artwork telling the veteran story, which is pretty awesome. So, and the good thing is I usually match 3 kids with 1 veteran, because then the veteran gets 3 different pieces of artwork, because we always hear different things or pick up different things. So that's the only thing I'd want to share, is even if it's not with veterans, it's with breast cancer patients or whoever, dementia. You play the piano, no reason not to go into a nursing home and play. Like, there's no reason why not to. Like, you should, and the students always love. I put it this way: I do it every year, and I have students coming back begging me to go again. You know why? Because it makes people feel good that you do something good. So it's driven like that. I'll tell you one. He's the local guy. He told us a story when he got back from Vietnam. Goes to somebody's question about would you do that out? Well, he's a Vietnam vet. When he got out, they sent him to California. They out-processed him in 3 hours. So in days, he went from Vietnam, California, and he was out. And they $50. And then they gave him a plane ticket. Could you imagine doing a year going to a different state where, and people aren't appreciative? He had to get home. So what did he do with his $50? Bought 3 hamburgers and 3 milkshakes and ate them all at one time, and then he wanted to eat. But the crazy thing, he went to a payphone, and in the day you had to put in a dime in the payphone before you could make a collect call. So he didn't have a dime. So he found this line of soldiers. Soldiers did is everybody saying dime. So the first soldier used a dime, make a collect call, and then he'd give the dime to the new soldier so everybody could make their collect calls. Well, this was 1969. One of my students, who was a 16-year-old kid, after the story, and she was a student of mine, jewelry painting and photography, found in 1969. It took her a long time to find it. She made it to him. Because that's what you have, that story of 1969. Like, that's the kind of stuff we do. Like, we do stuff, so it's not about what the kid is. Parents are happy. Because we're going to be doing it in Brewster next year, definitely. We've asked parents, we're going to the VA hospital. Not about the at all. It's about actual themselves, so we can do this project with anybody. Come into your house right now and do a piece of artwork about you. Because a lot of people are like, you're going to war. Yeah, we're going to talk about it because that's what they went through. But it's not about the war. It's about the veteran themselves.